Welcome to another episode of Culturally and Technically Legal with Josh Walls, the show where we examine the intersections of culture, law, and technology. Today, we're covering a very serious topic. We're talking about justice reform. As many of you may know, recording artist Meek was re-imprisoned in the late 2010s due to a violation of parole that just didn't really add up or make too much sense to many folks. Upon his getting out of prison, him and a group of philanthropists and really wise and smart people who were engaged and serious about change started the Reform Alliance. Since then, the Reform Alliance has done a lot of amazing and great work to truly bring justice to a mass incarceration system that is truly vicious and negligent to many. And just been able to help a lot of people. I think when we think of mass incarceration, we don't always think about what comes with it, right? You talk about parole, you talk about probation, you talk about the systems that get people in these spaces, and this Reform Alliance has done a great job to undermine the issues. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce my two very special and amazing guests who are going to guide us through this conversation. They're actually on the team at Reform Alliance with Meek and so many others. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you guys to Rondo and Hannah. How are you guys?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm so excited to have you guys here. You can hear it in my voice. I can barely put my words together, so bear with me. I just think this is a very important topic that people, should know about, should hear about, should have conversations about, should just be very well versed on, because it's an issue that truly affects all of us. And we have to find a solution to this issue. So before I keep rambling off and talking, I want you guys to share with me a little bit about yourselves, your background, how you guys got into the Reform Alliance, why this is important to you guys, and really just your whys about why you're part of this organization.
Rondo. I'm 21. I'm from the Bronx, New York. A little bit about me. I'm directly impacted. I did 15 and a half months on Rikers Island without being charged, and it was a very hard experience for me. Where I'm from, it's nobody does this line of work. Nobody speaks about criminal justice reform. Nobody realizes the effect that it's going to have if we don't start taking immediate action to this issue. And so I just wanted to be that one person that that wanted to be different from everybody else. And the reason why I developed a passion for this is because while I was incarcerated, I wasn't there for that long, but I've seen a lot of people my age come and go within a matter of maybe weeks, 2 weeks after being released. And I just always ask the why are people coming back here? And it's not a place that nobody, no Gen Z or nobody should be able to, be there happy. People were happy that they were there. And I just always was so confused on why. I hated it. And I couldn't bear with it. So I just wanted to know why. I got into it with criminal. I got into reform while being on Rikers Island. Actually, we had the program I was in. We had a family day event, and Jessica Jackson had came down, and she wanted to hear about what was going on down there. What the program consists of and things like that. My mother couldn't come. I had got into a little trouble on the visiting floor because I tried to change my sneakers because I couldn't get another package in. So I got in trouble. I got suspended for 30 days. So she couldn't come into the Rikers Island facility. So Lala and her people and Jessica Jackson had sat down with me. Those were my family for the day. And, I just spoke to them. I gave them my story. I told them a little bit about myself and what the program consists of. And, me and Jessica had a very nice long conversation. And she told me like, hey, like, I have a job for you when you come home. And I told her like, hey, I'm facing 3 felonies right now. I don't know when I could come home. It could be next year. It could be 5 years. Like, how can you guarantee me this? And she said, my word is my word. You have a different type of, a passion and ambition for this. And I feel like that you would be the perfect person. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna hold you to that. And I came home this year of January, and I've been at Reform ever since.
So I am 19 years old. I'm a sophomore at Penn State. And for me, just like Rondo, this issue is personal. When I was 2 months old, my father was incarcerated. And the first injustice hit when he was incarcerated for crimes stemming from a drug addiction. And, my mom, Jessica Jackson, who Rondo just talked about a little bit, but she thought, he has a drug addiction. He's going to get the help he needs, and then he'll be a great father and able to come back to our family. But, that's not what happened. That's not what happens with our system. Rather than getting the help he needed, he was just locked away. And they threw away the key until it was time to open that door back up. And he came home and he still struggled with those same addictions. But he fought really hard to be a good dad and to be a family man. And he ended up moving to Florida. He was incarcerated in Georgia, ended up moving to Florida, got a new job, got a new apartment. And then he was pulled over for a broken tail light. And his parole officer, who he was seeing at the time, had not been putting his meetings into the system. So when he was pulled over for a broken taillight, he was rearrested on a technical violation. Even though he was doing everything he had to do, he was meeting all of his requirements, his supervision requirements. He was seeing his parole officer. He had a job. He had an apartment. He was finally back on his feet, and then he got rearrested, and he was taken back to Georgia, and that was a complete kick in the stomach. And that's why I work with Reform, because they focus mainly on probation and parole, and there's so many people on supervision in the United States. So I'm able to work with them and help fix that and make sure that situations like what happened to me and my dad don't happen to other people.
Wow, that's a touching story, and I kind of I know that story all too well from the way my upbringing was, and knowing and understanding those struggles that a lot of people have. And I think
Yeah.
you guys touched on, very important topics, really, when we talk about what the pipeline system is, right? Could you guys talk a little bit more about these pipeline systems? I know, Rondo, you had experiences prior to even entering, right, where you talk about foster care systems, right? Or you talk about, going in and people coming back out, and just it was like a rotational door. And then you talk about the issues with your father, having, an addiction issue and the parole thing and the probation thing, and how these pipeline systems have kind of put them right back. Could you guys talk a little bit about what the pipeline systems look like and how they've, kind of talk a little bit more how they had a big impact on you guys? And maybe we start with Rondo and then go to Hannah.
Yeah, I can speak a lot about that. To be honest, before I even knew what Rikers was, before I even knew like what jail time is, I kind of was already dealing with these things at a very young age. At the age of 6 years old, I was taken away from my mother, placed in foster care to the age of 11. And while I was there, I endured some horrific things, physical abuse, neglection, like being starved, just I couldn't be a typical 6-year-old kid, 7-year-old kid, 8-year-old kid. The only thing I was able to do was fight. At the time, as I was doing a lot of research, and at the time I realized that foster care around that time, early 2000s, kids were just checks. A lot of kids, especially kids of color, were just checks. So to them, to these families that I was coming to, for love, and all of these household had, a father and a mother. I never had a father. So I just wanted to, feel appreciated, to feel love. And I was never able to receive that. I was always, given the far end of the stick. People were very aggressive, putting their hands on me. So it became second nature to fight back. And I kind of like, as I got older, that kind of developed into a stronger sense of hatred, like, towards this community in general. And then when I came back to my mom, I realized that I was not the same 6-year-old kid who used to love to go outside to have fun, to talk. And I came back, I was very aggressive, very aggressive. And I realized that, as I got older and I spoke about these things, the only thing that I ever really got for that was like medication. Oh, he's crazy. He got ADHD. Oh, he got this. Oh, he got depression. He got that. I was just giving medication. So, as I got older, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna do less talking to people because clearly that's not working. And I'm gonna start looking at the people who's getting recognition from the community. And those are the people, at the corner, the guys who are selling drugs, they got the women, they got the cars, they got the jewelry. And a lot of these guys are older. So to them, like to me, they were like kind of like my big brother, kind of like a father figure to me in my life, which was not the influence that I needed, but it's the influences that I wanted. I just wanted that love. And I felt that love coming from the wrong side of, of where I'm supposed to be at. So as I got older, it just kind of channeled and it got stronger, and my love for the streets got stronger, and that led me being on Rikers Island at the age of 18. And I can say that, while I was there, I did a lot of speaking. I love talking. I did a lot of talking with a lot of guys, a lot of friends that I got a lot of friends from Rikers Island that call me to this day, and I realized that we all have a story. We have a story, whether if that's being grown up in a single parent household, whether if that's going through foster care like I did, whether if that's seeing an older sibling being killed by the streets and you having this hatred and you want redemption. It's a story somehow, some way. And it just leads to people looking at the wrong people for a big brother influence, a father figure, because there's not a lot of things, a lot of organizations like Reform. There's not a lot of places you can go. There's not a lot of where you could go and just try to figure out that genuine help that you actually need. People always want to label you or criticize you, for the decisions that you make. And I realized that it just plays a huge effect into how you like it just plays an effect. It starts at a young age. Everybody has a story. So if I could say that for sure, I mean, it's just crazy how much something so small as far as foster care can contribute into me becoming, being incarcerated at the age of 18, or somebody losing a parent at a young age, or having a no father, or just having their mother and like it's having a father and no mother. Like it doesn't matter what kind of way it's set up, but a lot of things play a huge effect onto decision making as you get older.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, Rondo, and I think that's important. And Hannah, Rondo talks more about a direct experience with this mass incarceration system, right? And your conversation is a little bit centered around your father, creating a more indirect experience, but still a very, very direct impact, right? And before this interview, I was looking at the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration website, and they were dropping out some statistics. Sorry about that. That 45% of people in jail have some form of mental illness, and
Mhm.
58% of people in the prison system have some substance abuse disorder. In the work you do, how frequently do you see this substance abuse and mental health, keeping people in this mass incarceration system?
Like you said, there's so many people currently in the system who are lacking the resources they need rather than getting addiction help or mental health resources. They're locked inside and they're not given any of those resources. A lot of them aren't even given a diagnosis. I bet you those numbers would be way higher if we had more studies done and people are actually given the help they need to get those diagnoses. That number would be a lot higher. And, it's a trap. It's leading to people like me who I grew up without a father. I didn't have a father there to read me a bedtime story or give me a kiss goodnight or, come to my school dances or, be there for me. And there are a lot of people who share the same story as I. There are 5.5 million people in the system and 4 million people on supervision currently. And that is a massive number. Two-thirds of people in the system are on supervision. And it's crazy because the probation system was originally made to serve as an alternative for incarceration so people could stay with their families, but that's not how it's acting at all. It's a trap. People are getting arrested on technical violations like my father did. You mentioned Meek's story at the beginning. There was never any new crime committed, and yet he was sentenced 2 to 4 years for breaking up a fight and popping a wheelie in a music video. I mean, that's insane. That's a complete misuse of resources, and we could totally direct those resources towards helping people with mental health issues as well as drug addiction.
No, I agree with that. Now, sticking on the topic of mental health issues, Jay Z, another prominent figure in this whole reform space, right? Recently, he dropped a multiple part documentary series about the Khalif Browder story, right? Also, someone who was at Rikers Island. I don't know if he was there the same time as you, Rondo, but you hear his story, and it's an outcry for mental health assistance. How often do you see these stories, Rondo? Is this common? What's the recurring theme here, if there is one?
So, man, Khalif Browder, man, that story always gets me a little bit out of, it always hits close to home. To be honest, that that, oh man, to be honest, like if I could just say this, a lot of people use, they tend to go towards drugs for help. When I was there, and I remember this one time, I was before I got into the program and before I started getting my stuff together, I clearly was going through a roller coaster of emotions, and I had to do a lot of things that I wasn't proud of in order to survive in that environment. And I remember this one time, I said, let me try and see if I can talk to somebody about this. And I called. You have to call 311, call the clinic. I called the clinic. I scheduled an appointment. And after I scheduled an appointment, they asked me a whole bunch of questions and tests, and then I came back, and they only thing they wanted to do was just throw me on medication. So I was just like kind of like wow, because I grew up taking medication. So when they offered me that, I realized that, man, I'm about to be 21, so I'm 20 now. This is something I was dealing with almost 10 years ago, and this is still going on. But this time, it's not through school, it's through jail. So I can say that a lot of people end up, turning into drugs, for the escape. They don't want to be here in reality. They don't want to be here. People don't know how to deal with their emotions, and because they don't just people just they just don't know how to talk to a person that deals with these type of things. There's not enough help that teaches people how to talk to people like this. It's so sad what people end up turning into, how angry people get over the smallest things because they just want somebody just to show them a little ounce of love. And to reflect on the Khalif Browder, solitary confinement is not really something heavy in Rikers Island no more because there's so bunch of changes and things like that. But we do have something called lockdown, which is very similar. And that's something that happens when something like when your housing area gets into a big scuffle or somebody gets cut or sliced, you have to stay within your cell within, most of the time is minimum of 2 days. So for somebody who never been in that type of, environment like that, being in an enclosed space for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, it can drive you insane. And my longest I ever had to do was 5 days, and it felt way longer than a week. So man, I can't really get to speak the in depths of how the similarities of the Khalid Browder story is still going on in Rikers Island, but I could really say that a lot of people they definitely do turn to drugs. They turn to drugs, for cope and for help, and it's very sad to see what the drugs makes people do. It's oh man, it's so sad. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit off track, but it's
No,
just
no, no.
that's a little
It,
personal.
it, it, it it's fine. And I'm sorry for that. And I think one of the things to kind of change the story a little bit is you talk about love, right, a lot, and having that level of love, and you talk about being in Lala Anthony's program and her saying, "I got something for you as soon as you go out," right, and that kind of brings me to the space of, a lot of celebrities are in this conversation now, right? We just talked about Jay-Z with Khalif Browder, the Reform Alliance, stemming from Meek Mill's issues. Even Donald Trump, right? He signed an act for justice reform, right? We have to acknowledge that, and even Kim Kardashian, I see Hannah knows Kim Kardashian, and she's done some work around these spaces, right? A lot of people will say, why are entertainers partaking in this conversation, right? They don't know enough about the legal system, right? Kim Kardashian's a little different. She's getting her legal marriage in order, right? But in general, in general, they don't. And then even some people will say a lot of the music, a lot of these rappers create is in some ways fueling this system, fueling this narrative, fulfilling this beast. What do you say to the critics who oppose or have negative things about celebrities' influence in this space? Because after all, like you said, Lala Anthony was one of the people who helped save your life to a degree, and you've seen Kim Kardashian advocate, and you've been at summits at the White House and all those things. So what do you say to the critics who kind of take a opposing perspective to you guys' stance on celebrities being involved in this space?
Of course. Well, I can honestly say that a celebrity influence in sensitive topics like this is huge. So, for example, somebody like who's on a council, like Little Baby, right? Say, for example, you don't know nothing about criminal justice reform, but you listen to Lil Baby, you listen to his music. You don't know nothing about criminal justice reform, but you watch, you're a heavy fan of Kim Kardashian. If people with, and people in general, but specifically celebrities with, high influence to the community, if they show, that they actually are interested in this issue, it makes other people who are following them, who are also probably don't know about this issue or who are interested in the issue, but just don't see how this person could speak about it, come out of their shell. I mean, I literally watched it happen in front of me, and not that long ago in April, we had went to Lancaster jail in California, and Little Baby was, a lot of celebrities came, and but when Little Baby came, I seen a lot of people was just like, whoa, like Little Baby actually like he cares about this. So it just shows that like that anybody can play a part in this. You don't have to, come into prisons, speak to directly impacted people if that doesn't make you comfortable. There's a whole bunch of ways to be involved in this issue, using your platform if you want to. And at the end of the day, this is something that is optional. So it's like when you have huge celebrity people that's really into such topic, such sensitive topic that nobody really likes to speak about, it just brings the light into the perspective. It just makes more people want to get involved. I mean, Kim Kardashian is huge, a huge influence, and she's actually dedicated to this issue. I done had conversations with her, and she literally, it. I was even surprised a little bit, like when I first met her, like, wow, like Kim really know a lot. Like this is not a facade. So when people start to see like things like that, it brings people out. Like let's come out. Let's support. I mean, just like our future shapers, we are diverse, a real diverse group of Gen Zers. I'm directly impacted. Hannah's impacted. Then we have, people who are athletes. Then we have fashion people. Then we have, artists. So it's a huge diverse of Gen Zers coming from all over the place, all interested in this one issue, which is criminal justice reform. So I really see like it's a huge help when you're speaking about criminal justice reform when celebrities come into it, because celebrities have influence in communities. So it's like this criminal justice reform happens in communities. So it's like, we got this and then it comes from communities of all types. It can be rich, it can be a directly impacted community, knows nothing about criminal justice reform, and they want to know why should they get involved. So it's just a numerous amount of ways how a celebrity getting involved in this type of issue sheds the light and makes other people want to come involved. I call it, the domino effect. So yeah.
Hannah, what's your
Yeah.
take on the celebrity involvement?
I mean, these people have such massive platforms, and they're really using those platforms for good. Rondo was talking a little bit about how they help. A direct example of this is last week I was scrolling through Facebook, and my mom had posted a photo of me and Charlie D'Amelio at a reform event, and a dad commented on the post saying that he had showed the photo to his daughter, and now his daughter was Googling reform because she wanted to know about how Charlie was involved and what reform did, and she wanted to get involved herself. I mean, they're able to help so much. There are a lot of critics out there that don't understand, and they see Kim Kardashian at these reform events, but what they don't see is the amount of letters she gets every single week and goes through of people inside or their family members just absolutely pleading for help because they've been so hurt by our justice system that's supposed to do good but is not doing any good in the long run. And so she opens these letters and she directs them to the right resources and tries to help wherever she can. And that goes alongside so many of the other celebrities that you mentioned. Meek Mill, he's made absolute amazing progress on this. Michael Rubin, he's been so amazing. Just so many people that have really come together, and they really do not have to be doing this. They could do so many other things if it's just a philanthropy that they're looking for. They could be doing anything else, but they have seen how systemic this issue is, and they've heard the stories of the people that impacts them. I always say, like, I started in this work because of my father, but I continue because of the stories I've heard from people inside or their family members. And it's the same with these celebrities as well, and these influencers and athletes and artists as well, as they've heard the stories. They've heard Rondo's story, they've heard my story, and they're really eager to make change and actually help.
No, I couldn't agree with you guys more. And shout outs to Mike Rubin and Meek Mill. I'm from Philadelphia. So those
Yeah.
are names that you hear. And to your point, when they start associating their brand with these
Yeah.
issues and these things going on, right, it does cause you to listen. So I 100% agree with that. Recently, Hannah, you wrote an article in USA Today, and it was the call and a message to Generation Z to be more involved in this criminal reform space, and undermining the pins to mass incarceration. My question for you is, with Generation Z, it seems like you guys have so much to deal with, right? From conflicts, race, in the world, to things that go on right here. Whether it be mass shootings and so much, many things. Mental health is a big thing for you guys, and just dealing with people on a norm. Do you think you're adding extra pressure to Generation Z by the article that you wrote in USA Today? And why is it important for us to have this conversation as Generation Zers, to be informed about this particular space? And hey, like, justice reform should be right up there with all the other issues going on.
Yeah, Gen Z really does have to get involved. Before the 2022 primaries, campaign managers put out polls to see what issues Gen Z cared about, and the response was great. It was gun safety and abortion rights and climate change and mental health and just all these amazing issues that really need to be focused on. But criminal justice reform was nowhere to be found on that list. And the campaign managers then used these lists about what Gen Z cares about and tailored elected officials' campaigns towards those issues. And, because criminal justice reform wasn't an issue that Gen Z said they cared about as a priority, that wasn't seen from a lot of these elected officials' campaigns. And so that's why we really needed to spread the message to Gen Z. And that's why we started the Future Shapers Council, is because it's a group of Gen Z people and they all have huge platforms. Charlie D'Amelio has a huge platform, and we got a very diverse council, as Rhonda mentioned previously. We have athletes, we have CJ Stroud and Bryce, and we just have people from all over the place. We have climate people working on this, Sophia Kiani. And through our conversations, we've actually found there are a lot of links between the issues. Like, for example, criminal justice reform, prisons have a massive impact on the environment. And so we found these kind of connections between the issues. And mental health, as you mentioned previously, there's a huge connection between mass incarceration and mental health. And so we've been able to kind of tie these issues together. But it's really going to come down to Gen Z. Majority of us can vote now. We can vote in the next election. So it's going to be us voting on these bills that Reform's working on. Reform has already worked on 17 bills in 11 different states. They're still working on bills. They have a lot of legislation in Pennsylvania right now. And, we're going to be the ones voting on this. And we have to show that this is a really important issue for us. And we're going to be the generation to hopefully end mass incarceration and get people off supervision.
Well, no, that's a beautiful response, and I think you talked about Gen Z taking a part in this. Obviously, as we all know, black and brown communities are disproportionately affected by mass incarceration, parole, probation, just all these spaces, right? But I always tell people that it's not just a black and brown issue, right? It's a bigger issue, right? So what conversation needs to be had with people and really expressing the idea that this isn't about black or white. This is really, literally in a lot of ways about the have and the have nots, right? Hannah, you tell your story about your father, right? And I'm sure many people have similar stories. But why is it so important that we don't just look at this out of a black and white lens and that we have all hands involved with this type of issue?
Really is an issue that affects all of us, but I think we do have to mention the fact that it does majorly impact Black and Brown Americans. Black and Brown Americans are way more likely to be arrested. They're way more likely to get harsher punishments. And that is something that we really do have to realize and look at. But this issue does affect everyone. I mean, I'm affected by it. A lot of people don't even realize that they're affected by it. Everyone has someone that's been impacted by the justice system. So this really is an issue that we all have to focus on.
And what would you say to that, Rondo?
I mean, yeah, black and brown people are, the people who suffer like the most from the criminal justice system, but this is an issue for everybody. And it's like, you have to, if you start to look at it from black and white, you start to miss out on the other things, the smaller things, like your kid's future, or how did, like, it's just if you look at it from a race type of thing, you completely lose the whole objective of criminal justice reform. Criminal justice reform affects any color, doesn't matter what type of hair you got, doesn't matter what type of skin you got, it affects you in every way, form, or fashion. It affects it affects everybody. So I always like to, I always preach, like, listen, man, this is not just a black predominant issue. Like, if we don't start fixing these type of things, like, this is going to get worse. It's going to get worse. We're supposed to have a system to rehabilitate, and that goes for anybody, any color should be able to, if you have to get arrested, you should be able to properly rehabilitate and not be stuck in the middle of this, of the criminal justice door of the system. It's just kind of tricky. But if I could just say that, I don't like to look at it from a black or white issue. I love to spread information and give facts on why, if you don't start caring about this issue now, it can affect you, and you got a crib in the hills, and it can affect you if you're living in the projects. It can affect you if you're homeless. It can affect you if you're a college student. It can affect you if you're a mother with 7 kids. It affects everybody. So I love to pin a pinpoint of reasoning of why this will affect you, regardless of where you come from and what's your skin color. their skin color.
I agree. I agree. And before I let you guys go, I want to leave you with one more question. What do you think, as a society, right, are the next essential steps to truly see justice reform in this system?
Social media,
Mhm.
social media. People lives change overnight via social media. People spread messages fast as ever via social media. Social media has the power to create immediate change. People become famous overnight. A lot of it has the power to change anybody's life. And what I love to do is brainstorm ideas and ways where I can channel that energy into criminal justice reform via social media. Because to the naked eye of a lot of Gen Zers, I can see that this topic kind of is boring in a way, but it's only because of the way we show it. So if we can show it in a way that's digestible for college students, digestible for high schoolers, the upcoming generation, in a way where it's understandable for them, then it's a whole different ballgame. Because criminal justice reform is not something that's cool to a lot of Gen Zers, like me and Hannah, and like it's not cool to a lot of people, because a lot of people just don't know. So social media, definitely, that's my number one. And social media for sure. Social media, you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to go into prisons and speak. And it could be something as simple as you probably resharing something that everybody in your Instagram probably thought you would never share. So like, oh, like, Rondo sharing this, let me go take a look at what are you talking about. It just trickles the little, it's in your head that this person that probably you thought that would never be into it is into it, or this person that who never experienced criminal justice reform or doesn't know anybody that's affected by it is into it. You're gonna be like, why are they into it? What is bringing them to it? So social media.
Yeah, I completely agree with Rondo. I think social media is a great tool. I think the first step is education. I mean, a lot of people are unaware of what's happening within our criminal justice system. And I think social media is a great tool in terms of to get the message out and share stories of people who are directly impacted. I think that is a huge tool in this space, is sharing stories of people who are directly impacted, like Rondo being able to share his story here, so people can really learn about the injustices that are going on. I also think a major player in this space is bipartisanship. I think reform's done a great job at making this issue very bipartisan. There are people on the right working on it, there are people on the left working on it, because it's really going to take everyone. I mean, Van Jones, who is a major speaker in this space of criminal justice reform, he used to say, if you disagree with someone on 99%, but you agree with them on 1%, you fight like hell on that 1% to find common ground and make real change. And I think that's totally true when it comes to this topic. Like I said, everyone's affected by this issue, people on the right, people on the left. If you walked into a prison and said, do you care if it's a Republican or a Democrat that returns you to your family, lets you spend the holidays with your kids? They're going to say no. I mean, they're not going to care. And so that's why we really need everyone on this issue on both sides, all races, all socioeconomic statuses to come together, all generations, especially Gen Z, to come together and really work on this issue and mass incarceration.
Wow, and you guys gave me a lot of information, a lot of insight, and I couldn't agree with you both more. So where can people find more information about the Reform Alliance or ways to be involved?
Yeah, it's a couple of ways you can follow us on Instagram, Reform Alliance. You can also text reform to 81411. Once you do that, you will automatically become a reformer. We will keep you updated with all upcoming events that we have coming up. Ways to stay involved, ways you can amplify your voice in this. So that's the two ways I can think of. Hannah, are you good?
Yeah, reform.org is a great resource. I mean, there's
Mhm.
so many different ways you can help. You can read up on some of the legislation, share it with your friends. That's a major thing. Just talk about this issue, talk about how important it is. Sharing on social media, that's a great way to get involved. But there are so many different ways to get involved. Reform does job fairs. You can volunteer at a job fair in which they bring people who are coming out and coming home, and they give them the resources they need to get jobs and help them with interviews. You can volunteer there. You can volunteer to help with legislation, to campaign. There's so many different ways to get involved. But the first step is to be aware and be educated on what's happening. And you can do that at reform.org or on the Instagram.
Wow, thank you guys so much. And the act that I mentioned earlier, I don't think I said it's the First Step Act. That's the act that I was talking about. But thank you both for joining us today. Very insightful conversation about a very, very serious topic that I said affects everyone. But really, really thank you guys. Looking forward to keeping connected with you and fostering a relationship and just figuring out ways to tackle this issue. So thank you both again. And audience at home, thank you again for watching another episode of Culturally and Technically Legal, where we examine the intersections of culture, law, and technology. We had some really important guests on today from the Reform Alliance. Make sure you tune in, find ways to get involved, and thank you for watching this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode.